What does sustainability mean for every one of us? According to the dictionary, it is the ability to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, when CSR started, it wasn't called CSR actually. You know, if you go back and look at the industrial acts, you will surely learn about the Industries Act and all of that. The act specifies a few rules. In fact, some people started doing it before that, and then to just to bring some commonality, we had this law come into force. So let's take, for example, a cement manufacturing factory. Lot of dust is generated from the factory. So people around the factory, because when you have a factory, you need to have people working in the factory, and you have to have quarters to accommodate these people. So people around the factory were usually the families of the employees of that factory. So the owners, in order to maintain employees' attendance, had to do something to take care of their health, because for sure people will get sick because of all the dust that's emanating from a cement factory. So they built a hospital. They employed a doctor, a nurse, and all of that. It used to be a dispensary actually, and then for further treatment you go to a hospital. Then there was a need, when families started settling down, they had children. Now children had to go to schools, and schools would not be anywhere near a cement factory because it was outside of town. So they had to build a school, and then you had to engage the people during their weekly off. How do you do that? These people are not paid so much that they can take a vacation and go out. So they had to invest in recreation facilities and all of that. So this was done by a few of the companies. For example, Jamshedpur started it when the Tata Steels came in. Several cement factories started it. More notably, you will see such facilities in the remote areas of the Nilgiris, where you have several tea estates. There are people plucking tea leaves that are settlers on the hills. So some kind of facility has to be provided to them in order to keep them there, keep them healthy, and make them work worthy. Because once they fall sick, they won't report to work, and then profits dwindle. It's a cycle actually. So these are some examples of how CSR actually started. And when I think in 2013, our government came up with the CSR Act and made it mandatory for all companies to give back to the society. It's not as if government is washing its hands off from the welfare of, or from its responsibility of taking care of the welfare of its people. But the government also wanted to make sure companies invested in their employees and not run away with all of the profit. And what the government is asking is just 2% of the profit after tax. So that's not a huge amount for some of these companies. And when we talk about CSR, the one thing that comes to mind is sustainable. How sustainable is our project? How sustainable is our social responsibility activity? It's as this definition tells us, it needs to meet the needs of the present people without compromising on the ability of future generations. So when you look at all the projects that I just talked about, and that Personiv is doing, especially the solar power plant project, we take power from the sun and utilize it in order to reduce our consumption of um, resources that are dwindling actually. Of course, there are power generators now that are using coal, or the thermal power stations. Delhi runs on thermal power actually, and that's very dismaying, because at one point of time you'll run out of coal, And coal produces carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide that's more dangerous to the environment than anything else. You might have heard about ozone layer depletion and all of that. So, taking power from renewable sources like the sun, like the windmills that you have in and around Coimbatore, they keep giving back because it is renewable energy. You're taking power from something that's already existing, just converting that into usable resource instead of depleting natural resources. You're not cutting down trees, you're not digging up coal, you're not exhausting the petroleum resources that we have. Now, India is coming in big. In fact, most recently, I read in the news that in two-thirds of all the car sales that happened in the last quarter for Tata Motors came from electric car sales. Without a noise, Tata has started a revolution to electrify our automobiles. And two-thirds of their sales last quarter was from EVs. So that is sustainability. And when you have EVs being charged by solar power, nothing like it. That's the best thing that can happen to us. So, when we talk about sustainability, we also need to talk about sustainable development goals. Now, there are 17 such goals that UN has, in a meeting, decided to implement. So, when you look at the slide right now, it says our goal around the world is to eradicate poverty, to make sure every child is fed, um, provide good health and well being for everyone, provide quality education, provide gender equality, um, clean water and sanitization, affordable and clean energy, that is the renewable energy that I was talking about, decent work and economic growth for all employees, industry, innovation, and infrastructure growth, reduced inequalities, um, same rank, same pay kind of a thing, sustainable cities and communities. That's part of the smart city projects that we are seeing right now. Coimbatore is also executing that project. Responsible consumption and production. Um, the reason why this is come in is just because you have a lot of wheat, you can just throw it away. Like the US used to do it, they grew acres and acres, maybe lakhs of acres of wheat and started selling it to India. In fact, at one point of time when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister of India, she refused to accept the free wheat that we got from US, and all of it was dumped in the sea. But it started a new revolution. Fish fed on that wheat, and we had an amazing catch that year. So it was a revolution, actually, fishiculture as a revolution during that time. Climate action, life below water. Talk about fish that are depleting. The shark fin trade, the whale trade that happens in Japan. All of that is a huge goal for the UN right now. And then life on land. Very recently, we had the census on tigers, and we found that we only had 2,236 tigers, and there was a huge hue and cry about that. And we had tiger sanctuaries earmarked. People living in the buffer areas were sent out. Now, if somebody is from Ooty, they would know that the collector Innocent Divya, she did a lot of things to make sure that this rule is implemented. Several resorts that came up illegally in Masnagudi were all demolished, and those people sued her, and it's in the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court said she cannot be transferred till the time the case is over. So she is doing something fantastic to conserve tiger population. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. Institutions as in like Rotary, like the UN, UNICEF, Red Cross, all of those institutions. Partnerships for the goals. You can't do it all alone. Now, if you want to work on climate control, the US has to work with India for climate control. Al Gore was vice president 10, 15 years back when we started talking about global warming, and he was in India to promote it as well, because India was one of the largest producers of carbon monoxide and all the ozone layer depleting gases like CFC and all of that. And our own Sirutuli in Coimbatore is doing yeoman service in terms of making Coimbatore green again. So these are all sustainable development goals. If you work on any one of them, it has a ripple effect, and it's a cycle. It keeps giving back in other ways as well. And that's what we see in the next slide. It's called the triple bottom line effect. You get profit from economy, but how far are you depleting the planet or the environment because you want to be profitable? At one point of time, Sirumugai had a flourishing business. If you remember, the viscose factory, what they did was cut down all the trees that were in Nilgiris, bring it down here and make it as fabric. They never bothered about deforestation. For every tree that you cut, you need to plant 10 seedlings. Otherwise, how will you sustain it? And that's not good enough. And what did they do for the people around them? No, Sirumugai people who were part of that factory are jobless right now. They had to go search for some other job. So it's not sustainable. You have to put all of these circles together and make sure that you make the project sustainable, whatever industry you are in. So all of you MBA graduates are going to be, getting out into the corporate world in the next 2 years. So you have to choose your job. Is it worth joining and working 10 hours, 12 hours, you never know, for a company that does not care about the environment, that does not care about the people, does not care about how much you earn. All they are caring about is how much they can pocket and go. So it has to be a synergic reaction or cooperation between the three ideas of profit, planet, and people. They call it the three P's. And when all of these come together is when you can have a sustainable reaction. As I said, it's a triple bottom line approach. So uh, when you're looking at a project, whether it's a company that produces something or sells services, it has to be socio-environmental, it has to be socio-economic, and it also has to be economic and with efficiency, without which we would not be able to attain sustainability in any of the initiatives. So when you guys join companies in 2 years' time, you have to look at what that organization's vision is, what is their mission is. Every company has to do CSR right now, so and we have to report it on our website also. So you have to look out for that, and see if your ideas match. Only if that does, you join that company, and whatever you are contributing to the success of the company is sustainable if that happens. Otherwise, you can work with anybody, but end result is nothing. You're not giving back anything to the community. So every action that you do needs to give back something to the community that you come from. Otherwise, it's only selfish on each and every one of our part to engage in a business that only thinks about profit for oneself and does not think about the society, the economy, or the environment. So this is a study done by the Princeton University, and that's why I took that slide from them and pasted it here. Um, okay, so what are the sustainable development goals that we just saw? The UN General Assembly's open working group, um, they did these 17 goals, and each of these goals have 169 targets, and they can be broadly classified under people, dignity, prosperity, justice, partnership, and planet. So if any business takes up a CSR activity, it has to be among these heads with the 169 targets that can come about. And those are the areas where any company can do CSR on. So I don't know how many countries there are in the world. I think about 195 countries, out of which 193 countries adopted the sustainable development goals at the summit held in 2015. We are far ahead. In fact, we are pioneers in CSR even before these SDGs came into being. And the leaders came up with an agenda, what are we going to do this year, next year? How are we going to promote these goals and all of that? It's a call for action for all countries, by all countries. Like I said, it has to be synergic cooperation. US cannot do climate control by itself. It has to involve developing countries like the Brazils, the Indias, in order to be successful globally. Otherwise, something happening at one end of the world will definitely affect the other end. Now, we contribute to global warming. So the temperatures of all the oceans waters are increasing, resulting in Arctic ice melting down. Huge glaciers melting, which in turn increases the water levels, and several countries that are below sea level get affected because of that. So we have to be cautious and make sure projects that we do are sustainable. So there's a network called Global Compact Network, or UNGC. Um, they came up with the reporting requirement. Now is when we are starting with the governing of CSR, providing a business perfect perspective as countries identify local priorities and national action plans for sustainable development goals. Because it's not enough to just give the goals. People also should find it reasonably profitable and fair, because you can't ask a company to spend 50% of all its profits for CSR, right? So each company needs to come up with its own rules and priorities, and also priorities change by country. For us, renewable energy is a big thing, because you might have seen in a lot of WhatsApp forwards that petrol in some countries is just 6 rupees, but when it comes to India, it is 85 rupees. Why? So we have to look at renewable energy, and there was a huge wave that started in 2014 or 15 to transform to renewable energy when Modi started off that huge solar power plant, which is the largest in the entire world. Um, that was a huge hit, and then we had all of these windmills that came up in and around Coimbatore that contributed to the factory sharing the responsibility, facilitating partnerships and other collective action projects. And this is to implement the sustainability development goals. As I mentioned, no country can do it separately. No organization can do it separately also. You have to interact with the other organizations in order to be sustainable in your projects. And then the third most important thing is promoting accountability measures, and then also reporting on progress. Now, one thing that our government is doing is the strict follow up of all the rules and the scrutiny of all the reports that are generated in terms of CSR that companies are required to make. Because without governance, everything, or all the efforts that we've taken so far will go waste. Now, the next slide is about CSR alignment with SDGs. So, businesses cannot prosper in a world that is plagued with poverty. See, if you have people who are poor and you want to have them work for you without thinking about elevating their economic situation, if you're doing a business, that is stealing from those people. That is taking advantage of the economic status of those people. So our role in an organization, as an MBA graduate, as a manager or an intern that you are going to join in a company, our role should be to ensure that the work we do elevates the economic position of any employee that works for us. You have to, eradicate inequality. Right. That is why India has this rule. You cannot discriminate in terms of sex. Whether male or female, they get equal opportunity to work in a company. I'm proud to say in Persona we have about 45% women working for us. Violence, domestic violence, huge thing, and environmental stress. One example is the viscose factory that I just cited. Um, so India spent over $600 million, that is 5,780 crores in 2014-15. Um, in CSR. So we are well ahead in terms of CSR. Hence, for companies doing well and doing good simultaneously is of paramount importance. It adds to your brand value as well. See, Adithya School of Business is doing good because even during pandemic, even during days that we are not able to go to the college and attend classes, we are organizing virtual sessions where you can still enhance your knowledge, continue your learning journey and come out successful in life. So that increases the brand image. There are schools that I know of, especially business schools, that were started just for the business motive of earning more money. For many of these educators, mm, education has become a business, unfortunately. So education should be charitable. It has to be accessible by everybody. Of course, business school is a different thing, but then like we do for the tribal kids, they are left on their own. Nobody cares about their education. So we need to make sure, and I'm happy and satisfied that my brand is able to contribute something to that. So why we do that? Because we align ourselves to the um, SDGs. So when we go back to SDG here, right? So if you can put the projects that Personiv is doing in several of these, no poverty. Of course, we're trying to provide them alternative forms of employment by teaching them sewing and all of that. Zero hunger, we have not taken it up because that becomes a huge project for us and we would not be able to sustain it by ourselves. Um, Clean water and sanitization, we do that. Sanitation, we do in schools through Rotary. Rotary has this wash in schools project. Washing hands is so important, and we learned it the hard way when COVID hit us. Every person has to wash his hands very frequently, at least for 20 seconds. And Rotary has been doing this for like 4 5 years already, maybe more, I'm not sure. But then clean water and sanitation is an important project that Rotary does after these goals were formed. Affordable and clean energy, of course, we are doing that. And we have about 15 solar power plant installations in Coimbatore, Gurugram, and Manila put together in the past 5 years. Each of them at least 5 kilowatt. So you can imagine how much we have given back to the society. Um, and that comes under climate action as well because it is renewable energy. So somewhere I saw education also, the quality education, and we are trying to do that for tribal kids who are left on the lurch and fend for themselves. So every company that needs to create a brand value is required to do all these things. If not by law, it should be by our own conscience that we go ahead and implement some socially responsible projects that give back to the society. In turn, they increase our brand value. And actually, that's not a given, but then if it happens, it's a great thing. So that's how our CSR needs to be aligned with the sustainable development goals. So, what is social responsibility? Corporate social responsibility is the continuing commitment by business to contribute to economic development while improving the quality of life of the workforce and their families, as well as of the community and society at large. Now, there is also a rule which says if you're continuing to do what you do for your employees, you cannot call that CSR. You have to do something that affects the community at large. Supposing you are providing a lunch for the employees that come to the office, that's not CSR. It's part of work. You are providing them food so they can work the next half. So that cannot be taken as corporate social responsibility. There should be something that improves the quality of life of the community. And that's why as part of CSR projects, people have solar lighting provided to villages, toilets being constructed, because open defecation is a big thing in India and we want to eradicate that and clean the environment. um, Renewable energy that's used to provide for the homes that are built around these factories, also schools that are built, hospitals, affordable healthcare. These are all part of CSR activities that improve the quality of life of communities at a large. And there is a pyramid. All MBA students will learn something or the other about pyramids in your classes. Of course, you will have the Maslow's theory coming up. I don't know if you've already read it. That's an important part. Here is Carroll's CSR pyramid. So it starts with economic responsibilities. So when you're starting a company or when you're joining an organization, one of the most important things that you start to work is economic responsibility. You have a responsibility towards your family, towards yourself, towards the place where you studied. Maybe you have taken a loan to complete your education. So these are economic responsibilities that you need to fulfill, and that's why you start a company or join a company. And then there are the legal responsibilities. Obey the law, um, in whatever we do. Like I said, when I started, there were several things that my company did not do 10 years back that I wanted to change. And I also mentioned there were about 150 people working for us. Only 32 of them were on the rolls and were paid PF. The rest of them were just like contract laborers. They could be fired anytime. There is no social responsibility at all from the management side. They were not paid PF, ESI, no benefits, nothing. Now I've changed all of that because it's a legal requirement for a company that that has employed people, not to swindle all the money, but make sure people are happy and they are economically responsible, and also abide by some rules because my brand value is at stake. So every employee here at Persona, right now I have about 750. One point I had about 1,300, and then we keep losing business, gaining some, losing some. It's all in the business. So right now have about 750 employees. All of them have PF, all of them have ESI. Sorry, not all of them. Anybody who's earning up to 21,000 has ESI benefits. People above that have separate private healthcare coverage, accident coverage for everybody, and proper healthy workspace that is safe as well. So we need to make sure that we adhere to legal responsibility. You can also say that as a moral responsibility. For somebody who's running a company like me, it's a moral responsibility that I need to provide these things to keep my employees happy, healthy, safe, and secure. For companies that don't have a moral responsibility is when legal responsibility comes in, right? I might not be so forthcoming in providing all these benefits to my people, but the government makes sure that I do that. I better do that because um, we are doing business in India. India's brand value is at stake. It's not like the mills in Bangladesh, where US has banned imports from in terms of textiles. So because they employ people in very dingy factories, no space for them, not enough rest time, and all of that. Whereas companies like KPR in Coimbatore, they employ women from rural villages, bring them in here. They provide education, provide safe living spaces, take care of their health. So these are all moral responsibilities. And if some companies don't do that, then legalities come in. And then ethical responsibilities. I must have talked about moral responsibilities now, but then, um, in my opinion, moral comes before legal. Um, I need to be fair and make sure what I'm doing is the right thing to do before looking at the law. Law will always come in and say, okay, this is the right thing to do. But as an individual, each and every one of us who's going to become a manager, you don't need to be a head of an institution. Even if you are a individual contributor, you need to think about this in every day of your life. What am I doing? Is it right? Is it the best thing I can do? Is it fair to all concerned? Is it the truth? Rotary also has these four-way tests. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it bring goodwill and better friendships? After that, you have bylaws and laws and legalities that take care of it. So I have this difference of opinion with this pyramid, but still, um, when there is a rule of law, I'm sure people will find way to break the rule of law. But then comes the moral responsibility, and then philanthropic responsibility. I mentioned before that, excuse me, when I introduced myself, I'm a major donor with Rotary, and that's because I've donated a huge sum of money for polio vaccination throughout the world. So the money that I'm giving, I don't know who is it is going to, but because I'm giving through Rotary, I know it will reach the right person, and that's when governance comes in. Rotary, as any other social welfare organization, ensures that there is governance in everything that we do. Um, and when you talk about philanthropic, all of the other needs have to be met. Economic, legal, ethical, all of these needs have to be met for you to go to the next level and be philanthropic. Um, I don't even know how much Azim Premji has given, but the Foundation is a huge thing. They run schools as a CSR initiative. Wipro, which started as a company selling oil, is now running schools as part of CSR, and that's a big business. I'm sorry, not a business. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used that word. It's a big project that Azim himself is taking over, and left his son to take care of the business. Um, I had the privilege of working with Wipro BPO in 2002, and I met Azim Premji. He's a very down to earth person, and he's so content with what he has. He's very simple. He doesn't flash it. Of course, when you go to a certain level, then there are certain needs that unfortunately you have to get done. Like, sometimes when I have back to back appointments for meetings and all that, it's difficult for me to drive around the city and also be calm at the same time. So I have a driver that I need to use, but I can always set aside some money to do philanthropy. So Wipro Foundation is a very good example of how you can be responsible that way as well. And every step of the way, governance is very important. Let's talk about CSR laws in India. In April 2014, so India passed a law mandating CSR investment, and that is about 2%. Um, and this is before any other company could do it in uh, any part of the world. So this was made to make companies discharge their social responsibility through their innovative ideas and management skills. There is a company called Cognizant, if you guys remember. They have office in Coimbatore, and just like I did, when I sent my people to work from home during the pandemic, I had about 240 computers that lay idle in the office because I had to give these employees laptops. So these desktop computers became idle. What I did, I distributed those 240 computers to 10 schools across Coimbatore. Now, Cognizant is doing the same thing. They have 2,000 computers in Coimbatore alone. So, um, this is an innovative idea that we can use to reach out to the schools, and school students can start learning computer science or have access to e-learning, have access to the multiple resources that we have in terms of libraries, research papers, this and that. And this opened up opportunity to leverage traits unique to corporates, including rigor, the ability to innovate, and the willingness to collaborate, which potentially could lay the groundwork for greater efficiency and impact. So each company has their own unique idea, and they keep doing it. Cognizant, how they started. Every weekend, they would send people to slums and have their employees teach those children. Infosys did the same thing. They would adopt a village, especially a slum, go there, take care of the children's education for at least a day or two. And that's exactly what I am following. It could create an impact if big companies like these start doing stuff. Um, so that's the law in India. Now we come to the principles of good governance. See, it cannot be one size fits all for all the companies because it has to fit the culture. Supposing I have employees working for me coming in from several different areas across India, I cannot design a program that will be focused on a small nook inside this city because weekends or weekly offs, I cannot expect my employees to be here. So, supposing um, you get a job in Bangalore and your company has this culture of going to a village to teach those kids during the weekly off, but you are from Coimbatore, right? You would rather come to Coimbatore to meet your parents than sit and do CSR work there. So one size does not fit all. You cannot have one rule for all the companies. The governance framework needs to reflect the culture, style, and issues of the organization. So later on in life, I'm not saying that once you finish your MBA, you're going to be part of the CSR committee. No, 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 that's not going to happen. This is just learning for you that you can start implementing, and later on, when you become head of HR or head of marketing, and then you're part of the CSR committee, then you need to look at all of these things when governing is concerned. So it starts from honestly reporting what you are doing. Hiding facts is the worst thing that can happen, because when you hide facts, they're still somewhere, and I'm sure they will come out in the open one day or the other. Transparency, be open in whatever you're doing. Accountability is a very huge word, I would say, because it's doing what you're supposed to do when nobody's watching, right? It's very easy to do our work when there is a supervisor sitting on top of our heads, or if you're inside a classroom writing a test and there's no invigilator, if you're not looking at the other person's paper and writing what he is writing, that is accountability. Doing the right thing when nobody is watching. Responsibility. See, once you have finished your education, you're actually free, right? You're free to do what you want. Till you're about 18, 20, 21, you depend on what your parents are saying. My dad wants me to do this, do that. My mom wants me to do this, do that. But after 20 or 21, you become actually independent. In the US, what they do is, once people attain an age of 18, they're just chased away from the houses. It's a crime to live with your parents after 18, actually. And there are no arranged marriages in the US like we have in India. So no girl will look into your face if you say that you're living with your parents after 18. So she will look at you only if you are living on your own, earning on your own. So with that freedom comes responsibility. What responsibility? All of these things we talked about right now. First is our economic responsibility, right? You might have taken a loan to go through your MBA education. Now, what are you going to do next? Invest in a flat, buy an apartment, um, buy things that are required to make you comfortable, all of these things, right? So, responsibility. Again, see, the independence and responsibility, they are intertwined. With freedom comes responsibility. Without responsibility, there's no freedom at all. Okay, it's like an animal. Animal is free, but then does it do the right thing? Its only objective in life is to eat, sleep, and repeat. But we as human beings have a lot of responsibility, and that responsibility is even more important when we are given the freedom. Fairness, I talked about it earlier also. You cannot employ somebody in your organization. You are earning, your profits are like 1 crore rupees, and you have 100 employees, and each one of them is just paid 8,000, 9,000. That's not fair at all. What is the industry average at the moment? Do a study. For example, what we've done, we pay our employees on par with what the big five, the Tatas, the Infosys, the Wipros, the Cognizants, or the Accentures of the world, they pay in Chennai or Bangalore. The only differential that that you will see in Coimbatore is the night shift differential or a city differential. Otherwise, we are on par with good paymasters in large cities. So, is it fair? Yes. And this year there are about 121 employees that complete 5 years in my office, and 10 people who complete 10 years. I'm one of them. In total, we have about 170, 180 people that are more than 5 years in the company. Why? because they think persona has been fair. And how does that affect me? Because I have so many people who are uh, so tenured with me in my company, I can depend on them for the quality. And what is my quality figure? 99.5 and above consistently for the past 5 years. And how does that affect my brand value? My customer is happy that every time I have something to do, um, they will come back to me and say, okay, Fred, let's do this project. I know you will give 100%. And they don't hesitate to refer new customers for me as well. So it all starts within the organization. CSR actually starts within the organization. You don't have to go outside to start it first, and it affects your brand. And then you come to social responsibility. So these are the principles of good governance. I know if you guys go to your library or Google it up, you will get points for each and every one of these subtopics. So I'm not going to deal about them here, but sure, these are the principles of governance that you need to take care. And this is the rule that we have right now for CSR. What you have to do is 2% of the profit if your profit is 5 crores or more. Net profit is after tax. Okay, so that is one rule. Second rule is if your net worth is 500 crore or more. Third one is if your turnover is 1000 crore or more. So you must have heard of the term MSMEs, SMEs, small and medium enterprise, and then large enterprise. So it affects us depending on the size of the company. If you're a small company, is your profit more than 5 crore a year after tax? Then you spend 2% of that, which would on an average be about 5 lakhs or more. So that's the rule. Let's now go to reporting. Again, another important aspect of governance in CSR. We need to be sure of the CSR policy, um, which is under section 135, and directors report to general meeting to include a report about CSR initiatives as per format. Even the format is prescribed in the rule. Company website to disclose company CSR policy and CSR spends, how much we have spent, needs to be mentioned in the website. You would not see all of this in my website because actually I don't fall under the CSR bracket. If there is a failure to spend the CSR amount, then the board shall in its report specify the reasons. In fact, most of the companies will actually spend more than what they actually budgeted. And very rarely do we see such a scenario where there's a failure to spend, unless there is a project to provide housing for um, employees that are living in shacks, especially in construction sites or construction sites like the dams. It's a huge investment for how many ever years. So providing proper um, accommodation for them could be a CSR project. For example, hydropower projects where you have dams that are generating power, then you have to have proper place for people to stay, and then the families to be engaged. For example, hospitals, schools, and all of that. Excuse me. Now we are coming to the activities that are not covered under CSR. CSR projects benefiting only the employees of the companies. As I mentioned before, if you are going to provide lunch for your employees during their shift timing, you cannot claim that as a CSR project. One-off event, like if you're doing an event inaugurating, uh, small dispensary for a village, or a small school building, or a small library, That's a one-off event. You won't do it, on a sustainable basis. That's where sustainability comes in, and that's where you see all of the projects or major projects that I have done have all involved solar power plants, and these are not one-off events, and they are sustainable as well. Expenses incurred for fulfillment of regulations of any other act. So I cannot claim expenses like transportation to the site of the power plant installation as one of the expense under the CSR activity. There is a provision for companies to contribute to political parties. That cannot be considered as CSR. But if you are giving to the Prime Minister's relief fund, that can be considered as CSR. Unfortunately, if you give to the Chief Minister's relief fund, it will not be. And that's a funny take on the law of our land, unfortunately. Activities undertaken by companies in pursuance of its course of normal business. Now, I said, construction of houses for people in construction sites. Now, just the construction of houses alone will not constitute a CSR. But if you include um, the related economy around that place, usually a dam is built in a place where there are forests, there are tribals, there are farmlands that get affected. So, are you doing something to relocate those people, give them alternate ways of economic independence? Are you providing them with medical assistance? Because earlier they just used to cross the river and go to the other side. Now you've built a dam and then there's a lot of water. How are they going to reach the other side? Are you providing them facilities on this side so they don't have to worry about going to the other side? So all of these things need to be considered. And projects undertaken outside India cannot be reported under CSR. So in my report, I will not include the projects that I've done in Manila. I can only report what I've done in Coimbatore. And unfortunately, RBI also does not allow us to transfer money that easily between countries. So we need to file a lot of reports to get that done. And it's unnecessary work when it comes to governance of that CSR. So these are some of the things I thought I'll share with you regarding governing of social responsibility initiatives. I hope I've been able to satisfy um, all of you in terms of the kind of content that I have shared today. If there are any questions, I can take them. Dr. Sundar, do you have any questions?
So that's some great eye-opening. I was just talking to them about social obligation. That's what you have mentioned. One time doing something which we call it social responsiveness. Just after that, we leave it. There is no consistency or sustainability. Social obligation is all about meeting the economic and ethical and moral expectations of people, like your employee paying salary or giving one-time food. Those things which is we call it obligations, which is very clearly differentiated in your presentation, and keeping the belief, one of the beliefs of Adithya School of Business Management, creating an impact to the society, being a socially responsible leaders is one of the beliefs. So, and we have the great leader in front of us today. That is what it makes me all about. I want to share it here. I'm just, I got an interruption here. So going with light green business to green business or dark green business, which is another part, we have very well highlighted, Doctor, today. So green business is not just looking at only the environment. It is all about how we can make a sustainable business. It's all about, people think it's all about contributing to the society and, contributing to people and so on. Actually, what you give, you're going to get back. That is what, in a nutshell, you have just brought in as employer branding. There is another part. I have another project in that, and I have found a right person, resource person for me. I'm going to work with you, doctor. I'm so sorry to disturb, but I have no other choice. Very few I could figure it out around, and you are the one, and the president of Rotary Club of Coimbatore. And now I have found it. I will come and meet you when you are free in some time, doctor. I wanted to talk about it. It's a project, another project which I have for a long time. I was just trying to find out some source to do it, and I have a right resource in front of me. And thank you so much for being with us. And I personally picked up a lot of points which I wanted to see, that 3 Ps you have highlighted and segregated 2 aspects. One is about CSR, social responsibility. The other one is about corporate governance. That is very important. Just people can't do without any governance. That is where the transparency comes in, and all those. Then the resource management, that last thing which I picked up from this is what you spoke about synergy also. So what I was thinking about something, and from you I picked up something. Now we have a synergic destination where transformational leadership, which you are bringing to the community, to the people, and through the transnational culture which you wanted to practice. So these are the two different areas, big aspects. Transnational. We wanted to train these people to be transnational personalities, and you are that one example. You practice, you get the resources all around the world and give it around the world from wherever, whatever possible, balancing it all about. That's a great contribution that only can be done, only it's possible through with the heart and soul contribution. Nothing more, just by doing, just by the name, we can't do that. Without that heart and soul and the living with that as an example, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be possible by the then the right word to put it. It's not going to be possible. And you are the transnational personality and transformational leader, and you are with us today, Dr. Fred, and I'm so happy, and it's our honor and pleasure having you with us today. And thank you so much, Dr. Fred, and your time and energy and the efforts you put in, and it's really, really remarkable and very valuable. And we are so honored, our students and the academic community and the management of Adithya School of Business Management. We are so grateful to you in particular, and to Personiv as well. Doctor, thank you so much for gracing this occasion. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you,
Anything
Dr.
you wanted to share, one or two statements, or otherwise?
Yeah, thank you for having me here today. And I take it as a great privilege to, talk to students, because students are our future. If we taught our children how to follow traffic rules, they would be better citizens in the future. So just like that, what better way than to talk to management graduates, undergraduates, before they hit the corporate world, and tell them what to do, and how to do it in a better way, than wait for them to make a mistake and realize it later in life. I think it's a part of sustainable development as well, and
Yes,
you
that's right.
the right thing by having somebody from the corporate world come and talk to your students, because we have seen it the hard way. Nobody came to us when we studied and told us, this is how corporate life is going to be, or this is what you can expect when you make it big in corporate world. So, thank you for giving me that opportunity. I hope all of the students who were part of this session, I thought I saw about 33 of them, including
Yeah.
you and I. So, I hope all the 31 students get at least a small benefit out of what they heard today, and look out for opportunities to do better in the world, that will come up, right onto their faces when they get into corporate life. Thank you so much for
Thank
your.
you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Fred. We will try to work with you, whatever possible ways and means, and we will, we'll come back to you. Thank you so much, and have a
Thank you.
great day ahead, and we'll meet up again. Thank you.